just kind of recapping the trip overseas. I thought it was a great trip overall. I mean, I great experience for myself personally. Thought it was a great kind of bonding experience for us defensively and obviously the entire team. Talked to a few of you guys about the Steelers game. Obviously, that was something, a lot to learn from that game. And then the Browns game, which feels like it was a long time ago now. There was a great team effort, coming back, showing grit, and fighting back to make some stops, make some plays, and pull that one out. And now the focus is on Philly, which this is a great challenge. They've got one of the best rosters in the NFL. A lot of great players, O-line, quarterback, receivers, running back, obviously, tight ends. So be a great challenge, and but excited to be back. Getting the players back in on Monday. Batteries recharged, ready to get going, ready to get back to work, and excited to really get back to U.S. Bank as well. In front of that home crowd. So ready for any questions.
Just getting Blake back in the mix, like how much different is the defense when he's in there?
Yeah, Cash is, an important part of, our defense. We're still kind of taking this day to day with him. I know we opened the window the other day, so we'll see how we we go moving forward throughout the week. But he's a big part of what we do defensively from a communication standpoint, from just an athleticism, football acumen, getting other guys in the right positions, leadership. He does a great job. Can't wait for him to get back, but also not gonna take this day to day and see how he's feeling over the course of this week, and see if we open the window. With that said, I think Eric's done a great job, kind of in his place of these last 4 weeks, and I think as a total defense, it is never just one guy. Although that Cash is obviously a big part of what we do, but we need to get 11 guys on the same page, playing with really good technique and fundamentals, especially against an outfit like this in Philly, they've got skilled players all over the place, and good O-line, and certainly be a challenge for us. So, but would love to have Cash back. Hopefully he can. As we go through the week, he's feeling good and ready to go out there.
How have you evaluated Ivan Pace this season so far?
Ivan's done a lot of really good things. I think he's played physical, fast. I think his communication's been good, and he's made improvements, in that, and obviously those different areas, over the course of his 3 years. There's some plays he wants back, like every other player. Some calls I want back. Learning from those, continuing to grow and get better, and I think he's doing a lot of good things.
Brian, as you spent last week looking at just the run defense in general, what thoughts did you have just looking at it with time?
Yeah, I think that's an area of that's a spot where we certainly need some improvement across the board. First person I look at is myself. What can we do to put them players in better positions? Whether it's calls, fronts, coverages, disguise. Maybe it's too much of this, too much of that, not enough of this, not enough of that. So you kind of go through that, or I go through that, individually with myself first. Also with our coaching staff. Hey, what do we need to do to improve in, inside run, outside run, gap runs, zone runs, whatever it happens to be, and kind of put our heads together, brainstorm it, talk through the 2-3 things that are the most important, and then kind of deliver that message to the players. And that's what we've done. Especially after having an entire week to self-scout all of it, and say, hey, these are the 2 or 3 things we need to really get done. So, that's where we'll place the emphasis. And, I think generally they're the same things. It's fundamentals, it's tackling, it's getting off blocks, it's setting edges, it's, things right in that kind of realm. And, I think we talked about this last week. It's not the flashy stuff. There's nothing flashy about it. It's really the non-sexy things that we just need to do a better job of, be more consistent with. And, I think if we do that, then, we'll put ourselves in better position.
Brian, when you see Javon Hargrave get as much attention from blockers as he's gotten, how has that affected him? And then how do you guys play off of that when he is getting that much attention?
Yeah, I think, he's a good player, so he gets a lot of attention. And I think just, as a whole defensively, when we kind of see that, it's how do we use that to our advantage? Who can we, maybe sneak through if there's a lot of attention being paid to him, to make them, pay attention to somebody else. Essentially that's, kind of the process we go through. I think it's no different than, offensively, if somebody's getting double teamed, then somebody else has got to, should be open. So, whether it's Grave or J.A. or, Grenard, I think that happens from time to time. And when it does, we just try to, I don't want to say offset it, but, make them potentially think about another person so that, we can then free that player up again, if that's the case. But oftentimes, they're just going to, they're going to stay on the one guy, and then, which means somebody else has got to make a play.
So over the years, how have you thought playing with a lead versus not playing with a lead affects either the way defenses are called, or your defenses are called, or the way players play, their mindsets, in the situations where, they might be in a lead, or in other situations where they're not, they're trailing? Yeah,
There's certainly ebbs and flows in every, football game. I think it's certainly a momentum game. Emotions are up and down based on, winning, losing, good play, bad play. So I think that's something, we talk about as a defensive unit, our ability to respond regardless of situation, whether we're up, whether we're down. I think oftentimes you go up, and sometimes, there's a complacency that sets in, and then, that's how other teams get back in the games. So, I understand the question. I do. I think that's something that, as a coach, as a leader, you try to, or I try to talk about the ebbs and flows of the game, and we don't know what's going to happen. The ball bounces funny, and so you could be up. You got to, maintain a high level. You got to keep your foot on the gas. You can be down. I think you got to stay even. And I think we try to do that as a coaching staff. And lead by example that way, so that our players kind of respond correctly, whether we're winning or losing.
How about schematically? Do you find that either you or you've observed other people calling defenses differently when you're ahead versus when you're trailing?
I think ultimately, I always want to try to be aggressive. Whether, regardless of the situation, but, you're trying to limit points, you're trying to, win field position, you're trying to, do everything we can to, get the ball back to the offense. And, I can't say that it changes based on, ebbs and flows of a game, but, we're always trying to be aggressive, we're always trying to, get it back to the offense in good field position. If we could obviously turn them over, we're trying to do that. But, I don't, that's kind of where I fall in there.
How do the better teams overcome these momentum swings? Obviously you see teams really race out to 4-0 start, and then they lose 2 in a row. And the better teams, over the times you've been involved with better teams, how do they overcome these momentum swings?
I think it really boils down to relationships. I think the best teams that I've been a part of have had, great relationships within the team. And those relationships allow them to overcome the adversity that's going to hit, within the football season. It's like we know it's going to happen. It's not going to always be, 30-0 like that. That's just not this league. It's hard. There's adversity. There's frustration. There's stress. There's anxiety. All those things occur in the National Football League, and really in life. And so you lean on the people, to your left and your right, your teammates, the guys in the locker room, in our meeting room. I know we talk about that quite a bit. And so, the ebbs and flows of a season, of a game, I think you get through those with, the people around you, or through the people around you and with the people that are around you.
Brian, what do you think of the challenge that Saquon presents?
I mean, he's the best back in the league. He's great vision. He's fast, physical. He's great out of the backfield. Just as far as catching the football. Big challenge. And obviously, the numbers speak for themselves. He's just a great player. But they've got a lot of other great players around him. So, if you want to take away Saquon, and you got to deal with A.J. Brown and Smith and Goddard, they got a really good line. So it's a big, huge challenge for us. I think we've got to, really kind of lean in on our techniques and our fundamentals and our communication and playing team defense, because, the one-on-one game with Saquon is probably, we got to get, more than one guy, around him. 2, 3, 4, 5, as many guys as possible. Crowd noise, we could use that too. And but yeah, it's a big challenge. But it's really their entire team. I think, like I said earlier, they got a great roster. Howie does a great job, putting that whole thing together. Brooklyn guy, so I always say hello to him, pregame. And
When you think back to Isaiah Rodgers, kind of those first conversations you had with him after you guys signed him, what do you remember about just the discussions telling him what you thought he could be and the role he was going to play in the defense?
I think he. I talked to him about what I thought how I thought he could fit in our system, and just his coverage ability, his ability to be tight in coverage, but his ball skills and his return ability, and I'm normally just very honest with guys. Hey, I think you can do this, and this in this particular system. Here's why. I have a vision for every guy that steps on the field for us, and we just kind of talk it out. You do these things well, which fit in what we do, and if you come in and you learn the system and you work at the techniques and fundamentals and play within the scheme, we think good things will happen. And this is essentially the conversation I have with him and everybody else, anyone else that comes in.
I mean, yeah, it's been a bigger role, I suppose, for him than he maybe played in other places. Mm-hmm. When he hears that from you, if we think you can do all of these things, I guess how much of a spark does that provide, or how did he react to it?
He's a very confident kid, so I don't know if he was surprised by that. And I know, given the other things that have, it's a bigger role than he's had in the past, but, I think there's some other, circumstances that are the reasons why he hasn't gotten those opportunities. But, he's confident. I had confidence in him. We all, as a, group, had confidence that he could come in here and, help us. And I think he has. But we still got a long way to go. And, we're not going to, say, hey, we were, it's set in stone that he's this type of player. I think he's got to prove it week after week after week.
Brian, do you anticipate Harrison's usage continuing to uptick as you kind of keep ramping him up?
I think we're kind of evaluating that and talking about it. As a staff, I think he's, been in some of the dime roles, more of the third down, kind of obvious pass situations. And, I think the other, Theo and Metellus are playing well. And, I think we're in the space where, potentially, we could, play him a little bit more. But I think it's going to be by game plan. You know, what do we need from him this particular week, and it's like that for everybody. So we'll see. We're kind of still putting that all together now.
Previously, it had been that what was best was to have him out there every play. I'm just curious what's changed. I know that he had, the health stuff, but at this point, I assume that that's not a factor anymore.
Well, I think we're still, again, working back in a lot of ways. I would say nothing's changed from that standpoint as far as his importance to the defense, to the team. But I think there's some things that I think he's still working his way back, and we'll work with him and get him out there as much as we possibly can. But it's a long season also, and I think we got to be smart about him and some of our older, more veteran players.
Brian, how does
talk
a-
about examining this team's identity with the coaching staff in the bye week? I'm just curious what your perspective is on particularly the identity of the defense of this team.
I think we're still learning and figuring out what that is. I think we want to be a tough, physical, smart team or defense that limits points and plays good situationally. And I think we're still kind of growing and learning and trying to be those things, at a high level. I think, we all kind of want, not necessarily the word I'm thinking is, we want to raise the bar, we want to have a high standard. And I think in some instances we've done some good things, but we're still, I don't think we've played our best football yet. And so I think that's where you'll see what what we think our identity is. And I think hopefully we'll see that in the next, few weeks. And we're working towards that. We're working towards kind of, hopefully playing our best football. And we got a great challenge this week, and every week's a different challenge. And so, as far as our identity, we want to be tough, we want to be physical, we want to be, situationally, good. But, I also want a team that, or a defense that's having a good time and having fun out there as well. I think that's important as far as our identity.
Brian, why is Saquon's, obviously he's a great player, but his numbers are down. Are they not using him the same way, or just, they seem like they're obviously a good offense, but they haven't put a full game together and they're kind of struggling a little bit here and there?
Trying to jinx me, huh? See, I think we know what type of player Saquon is. A.J. Brown, Devontae, the tight ends, the O-line. Look, they're the defending champs. I think I think I'm going into this as, I'm not really looking at the numbers, it's just the history and the talent that's there. So the explosiveness that's there. So I'm just, we've got a big challenge ahead of us, and I can't speak to why, what's going on. I'm expecting their very best effort, and them at whatever their highest capacity is. I think that's what we're going to get.